This is Talk of Devils, the athletic show dedicated to Manchester United. Coming up in today's episode, we are going to rule the roost over Manchester United's commercial revenue and seeing whether or not a season of no European football is really hurting the bank balance. We're also going to preview United's game against Tottenham Hotspur and whether or not Carrick's side can get revenge for a disappointing 4 defeats to Spurs last season. And it's stick or twist. Manchester United's attack's getting better. Should Sesko come off the bench and start on Saturday? Right then, as you may have noticed, we're doing a little bit of squad rotation here. Manchester United are in one cup competition, but when you're covering Manchester United, you need to have a lot of movement. Ian is taking another short break, so I'm stepping into hosting duties, but we do, thankfully, get to welcome back another beloved cast member. Anantha sent an email going, where is Sir Lawrence James Whitwell, the shining beacon of the podcast? So, hello, how are you? Laurie, welcome back.
Wow, what a compliment. The shining beacon. I don't know if that's just because I've got the ring light shining in my face right now and I'm quite pasty skinned. Nice to be back. Thank you for having me on. Sorry I've been away. Listen, when commercial revenue gets brought up, I am straight in there. I can't wait to discuss such exciting topics.
Couldn't let me have this one, could you? You just couldn't let me just have it to myself, my own little thing.
In truth, it's United have won 3 games in a row. That doesn't happen all that often in recent years. So that's why I actually really want to come back and discuss what we're seeing on the pitch. But I'm sure we'll get to that in time.
Absolutely. And for those wondering where you've been, could you share a little bit about where you've been?
Just looking after babies. I'm on paternity leave basically, so yeah, juggling a couple now, so it's a bit of a ride when you try and do that kind of thing when Manchester United change managers. You can't really avoid that too much. So I came back in emergency style for that one, but trying to keep a low profile. But again, United is too much. It's in my blood, isn't it? So I can't stay away too long.
Laurie's version of low profile. Surprise appearances on podcasts up and down the country. He's one of one. We've also got Critchley with it. We've also got Andy, man. Andy, how are you doing?
All good. Looking forward to the game at the weekend. I've been busy working on a piece for the Athletics. I've been up since 5 this morning. I'm sure you'll be getting your small violins out. I'm sure Laurie's getting up at that time or most days at the moment. But good. Looking forward to this. Manchester United winning. Let's bring it on and brighten up the winter.
Absolutely. Right then. Today, let's talk about Manchester United's commercial concerns. So, Critch, Laurie, you've been collaborating on a big in-depth piece on Manchester United. It's really big.
You suggest it's like it's too big, Carl.
It's a weighty read. It's not quite, I don't know, Andy giving us a charted history of the top team in Romania, for example. But
who were they?
It's good. Anyway, this piece is looking over the commercial concerns and how Manchester United's money isn't doing as good as it used to be. Creature I've got here in my bullet points. Edward Wood said the commercial appeal is unaffected by the performances on the field, or words to that effect. It was a very, very famous quote that came up again and again and again to show that Edward Wood was not a football person, but more about the numbers. Now United aren't playing as well. Is that quote being put to the test?
Well, on the surface of things, you would say maybe not. If you look at United's accounts for last season, particularly the commercial revenue, what the subject of this piece that we've written today, it was a record last season. It was £333.3 million, very nice, even third of a billion number. And you know, that's because they've signed huge sponsorship deals over the past few years, 90 million per year from Adidas, the kit manufacturer, 60 million per year from Qualcomm, otherwise known as Snapdragon, which is the front of shirt sponsor. These are 2 of the biggest deals of their kind. And you know, United have always had this reputation, as Woodward rightly said in the past, of being commercially dominant over their rivals and being able to attract big name, big money sponsors. The slight bit of concern now comes in the fact that there's no training kit partner this season. People will know the deal that United had with Tezos, which was a kind of cryptocurrency blockchain company. That came to an end last season, so you'll have seen the very fetching purple number that United have been wearing in training sessions this season. Doesn't have a sponsor on it. There's a vacancy there. There's also coming down the line, the shirt sleeve deal. People will be aware, DXC Technology, a technology company based in the US, they sponsor the shirt sleeves. They also work with United on a lot of things like the official app, the data processing within the club, on the football side as well. That partnership is set to end at the end of this season. Now, we'll see whether that's renewed. We'll see whether United find a new partner for that. And look, it's not unusual for these gaps to crop up every now and again. Just think of Chelsea. They've been without a permanent front of shirt sponsor, a huge deal, for the best part of 3 years now, where they haven't had one consistently. So it's not unusual. If you ask United, they would say, particularly on the training kit, that they're not just going to do a deal for any price, that they want to make sure it's the right one. But it is now coming up to a year. Well, at the end of the season, it will be a whole year since they last had that sponsorship in place. And this is something that, through speaking to people familiar with the situation and our sources, we're aware that this is a point of concern now. Currently there's a shortfall in those sponsorship revenues. It'd be at least a minimum of £24 million, which is the value of the Tezos deal. And this is something that has been brought up and remarked upon at the executive committee meetings, the big meetings where Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the Glazers and the club's leadership get together and discuss goings on within the club every month or so. And so this is something that's becoming more and more of a concern. And so myself, Laurie, our colleague Adam Crafton have been digging into this, trying to find out what's going on and exactly how a club which still, to be fair, has a reputation for being able to bring in these huge commercial deals is now starting to wonder, well, where are the next ones coming from on these two quite big ticket items?
Yeah, I think Rich summed it up perfectly there. I think the hook for the piece is, the Deloitte Money League, where United, I think, are now behind Liverpool and City for commercial deals. Okay, we can discuss City's ability to generate commercial partners, but I think Liverpool's a fair comparison. And so where United had been setting the agenda and, I guess other clubs trying to imitate them. Now, it's a slightly different landscape, right? And I totally take the point that United don't want to just sell, branding, sell a partnership for any price at all. And to be honest, it might sound quite cold to a lot of fans anyway. Certainly, I know when the Glazers took over, their strategy for, I guess, linking with companies all over the world was seen as very distasteful by a lot of fans because, it felt like it was selling the club out, selling the club soul. But I suppose we're in now this era where that is the norm. So, and United are a club that does need to generate money that way because of the debt that's been placed onto the club by the Glazers and then Sir Jim Ratcliffe's sort of managing of that situation and the two lots of redundancies that have been put through the club. So clearly finances are, wanting to maximise what the club can earn is a key pillar of what Ratcliffe is trying to do. And so therefore, training kit sponsor would be a central aspect of that. So for them not to have got one at the moment is interesting, and certainly I think that's something the Glazers have been asking questions about. But let's see. I mean, it's not an exact science, I don't think, this thing. And I suppose the one sort of point to it all is that there's been a lot of change, right? So I mentioned the redundancies earlier. The people that kind of brought in these sort of huge numbers are no longer at the club to a large degree. So the Adidas deal, the Snapdragon deal, we're talking about people that are no longer at the club. So it's an evolving situation. Can these new people that are being brought on board, generate the kind of big sponsorships that United need? And I think there was certainly a look from Ratcliffe's regime that there was a lot of money being spent to sort of get the interest and get these companies on board, in terms of flying across the world and various different ways that, obviously you have to, I guess, approach partners and try and entice them to link up with you. That's been stripped away. So, again, let's see how this can now develop. But it's just an interesting topic, I guess, of conversation, certainly for people like me and Critch, at least. I mean, it might be tiresome for some others, but I certainly think it's all part of the kind of ecosystem around Manchester United and then ultimately what they can do on the pitch, because you clearly need money to sign the best players.
There's some interesting tidbits in this piece. Like you say, Laurie, the headcount in the commercial department's been reduced by a third. There's fewer perks, fewer free kits and tickets and other things that perhaps if you're in a commercial department you use to build relationships with potential sponsors. And also sometimes the commercial staff are working 20-hour days trying to follow the sun and make sure they can keep talking to clients all around the world. Andy, this seems to be keeping in line with Andy. Let me say this again. Andy, this seems to be keeping in line with what you've been saying quite a bit, which is when Manchester United are in Europe, things are a lot easier to get sorted.
I'm looking forward to reading the piece, lads. I know you put a lot of work into it, and I'm going to get straight onto it. I think it's the stuff that you do really well, and it's important to do it. And just listening to the lads speak here, my thoughts are the Glazers, it was a stroke of genius doing what they did, dividing the world up geographically and saying, yeah, you can become our South American wine partner, for example. It is so simple, and yet nobody had done it before. Everybody has since copied Manchester United. But I can remember in 2013, and I didn't have a big problem, by the way, with commercial partners. You know, we always used to say the noodle partner in Southeast Asia. Fine. If that money is filtering in through to the football club, I didn't have a big issue with that. I had a bigger issue with the Glazers and the interest payments and all that type of stuff. But commercially, United were trailblazers. And I've spoke to people at Barcelona and Real Madrid, and they're like, Man United are absolutely number one. Are United number one now? I think the lads touching on the point that a lot of staff have left. You know, some of them were really good, really well respected within their industries. Mark Armstrong has come in from PSG. He did exceptionally well at PSG. But a lot of it's down to common sense. If you're not in the Champions League, if you're not the team that you were, then you're going to be less attractive to potential sponsors. And I always remember speaking to Ed Woodward in 2013, and he said, our job is just to sell the diamonds, i.e. it's not that difficult. But the diamonds were the star players and the team who were champions of England. Manchester United finished 15th last season. So it is just common sense that it is a harder sell. You've got less visibility, you've got less matches. It's another reason why Manchester United need to get back into Europe. And it's that virtuous circle. And Omar Barada will know all about this because Ferran Soriano, who's the man who coined the phrase when he was at Barcelona, success follows success. If you've got the best team, then you can sell commercial sponsorship packages off the back of that. But the opposite has been true for Manchester United. It's actually interesting that United have remained so strong commercially, given how the team have faltered. Lots of room for improvement. And I think that will come if Manchester United get back to where we all want them to be.
We've just got a brand new question coming in to our podcast now, the magic of live broadcasting, from reader Tom, saying, just after reading Critch's article, simple question, why don't Ineos just sponsor the training ground kit and shirt sleeve themselves?
Well, I mean, that is a live question. I think that one reason why that might be quite difficult at the moment is because, well, Ineos themselves have issues with financially, and they've actually been withdrawing from more of their sports sponsorships over the past year, whether that's the All Blacks. I think that their interest in sailing and F1, that's been pared back as well. And so
Tottenham
I don't
Hotspurs,
know if they've necessarily got...
seats.
Yeah, Tottenham Hotspur, of course, the dugout seats, famously. So I don't know whether that would be a slight impediment. Then you've also, I assume they would, but they would also have to negotiate through the Premier League's rules around associated party sponsorships and transactions, and that I don't think it would necessarily be complicated. It would be a hurdle that they have to jump. One thing that you can say broadly about United's partnerships is that they don't have those connections. Like, despite the fact that they've been historically quite successful, very successful commercially, they haven't really lent on sponsors that are somehow related to the ownership of the club, whether that was Ineos now or whether it was the Glazers before as well. And you can say, well, other teams have. Certainly, you don't have to think too far across town to think of teams who have lent on that. Who could I mean? You'll just have to guess. So there's that, and maybe it's an avenue that they would explore further down the line, but at this point in time, they haven't.
Now, we are talking in a season where United only have Premier League games remaining. There is no Europe. There is no FA Cup to sort of top up the coffers. Laurie, these proposed mid-season friendlies all around the world, where are we with those?
Yeah, good question. Obviously, it was October, I think, when I wrote about the Saudi Arabia prospect being explored by United, and Ruben Amorim was asked about it in a press conference by me, in fairness, and he said, yes, it's something we should do because we have to, appreciate the commercial side of the club as well. So that's interesting that you've even got a head coach in that regard talking in those terms. So I wonder how much Michael Carrick is having these kind of discussions now, because clearly United been out of the FA Cup, and there's a couple of windows, aren't there? There's sort of later in February, well, in fact, sort of 14th, 15th, there's no game, obviously. And then there's one later in March as well, sort of the 7th, 8th of March. So you're sort of wondering, are United going to try and fit a match in there that would give them some extra revenue? You know, some figures that have been discussed previously with other games that have been staged by other clubs. You know, you're sort of talking £10 million potentially, which is enormous amount of money for a one-off game. Now, obviously, that is balanced against the fact that United currently are now, really are in the hunt for the Champions League places, and the windfall that would bring, you're thinking in excess of 100 million, really, just in terms of the prize money and broadcast revenue, let alone then potentially, as Andy sort of touched on there, the associated uplift to the sponsorships that you could get. So United, I think, are in a phase right now where they're weighing up all those sort of factors, really. There was, for example, an offer of a training camp and a game, I think, in Florida, which United have turned down. I think there was some concern, maybe even from the players, that the trip, the kind of the commercial activities that they would maybe have to do as well would not be beneficial to the sporting side of things. So I think that's perhaps a good sign if that was ultimately what was decided, really, that the football team comes first. We've seen from people in Kuwait that have suggested that United, were perhaps offered an opportunity there. Saudi Arabia, I'm not hearing anything more on that more recently. So yeah, let's see if anything does get arranged. But I suppose we are getting on a bit now, aren't we, for something to kind of be confirmed and then United to actually go abroad even. But yeah, I think it's an interesting aspect, and maybe that's something to say, actually, for example, the Amazon documentary that was proposed by United, I think it would have been proposed to United rather. I think it would have been record breaking in terms of that kind of thing for a football club to do. United turned that down, I think, in part because I think they realised that, opening the dressing room doors in this period of turbulence, as it was back then, might not have been the greatest idea. But also I think it shows that they're not just out to get, whatever checkbook they can get from companies. So yeah, but I think the mid-season friendlies is an interesting one to kind of keep an eye on and see if anything does come up from it.
Andy, what are your thoughts on potential mid-season friendlies? I know you've previously spoken about your friends who don't really know what to do with their midweeks now they're not doing European aways.
Well, them friends keep coming to me going, have you heard anything? Have you heard anything? I've heard this, I've heard that. And I'm like, it's not true. No, I've not heard anything. And I checked this week, and I know Laurie's been checking, and I've not heard anything. And I think there is a feeling that the football's going well at the moment. And if Manchester United continue and get into European qualification, so I've not got any hard evidence that it's happening. The counter argument to that is when United did go to Saudi Arabia in 2008, they ended up winning the league and the Champions League that season. So people criticised it at the time, but actually it affected very, very little. That's a story for another time. Getting to Saudi then was extremely difficult. Now they welcome you in. There's a small visa fee. Back then, I was invited in. I think my job was an engineer for a major US soft drinks cola brand. I think there were 16 of us working for that company, and we all got in, we came through immigration in Riyadh, and we got in, and it was good. It was interesting. I don't know if we'll be going back this year. Not heard anything.
Okay, as Laurie said, the first big gap is next weekend. So following the game against West Ham, there is no Manchester United game for a good chunk of time. Which one of you gentlemen has booked a holiday or time off to spend Valentine's Day with your loved ones?
Not me. Laurie's on paternity anyway. Andy works all the time. What about you, Carl? Have you booked time off?
This is like a question that
Andy's going to a non-league stadium, surely. Surely Andy's going to a non-league stadium.
I will be with my lovely wife on Valentine's Day. But there's this stadium I've seen which looks like the most bizarre one in Europe, and I'm showing her, and I'm expecting her to go, this looks great, and I'm not getting any positive feedback whatsoever.
That's your one true love, isn't it, Andy?
Stadium.
That's your real love.
Bricks and mortar.
Yeah.
We'll get up to this later on. If you are up to something interesting in this February break where there's no Manchester United football, please send in a message to our inbox, devilspod@theathletic.com. Keep your questions short, keep them original, don't use too much ChatGPT, and don't recommend playing Lisandro Martinez in central midfield. All right, sound. This is an important week in Manchester United history, as this is the week where we remember the Munich air disaster. Michael Carrick has moved his typical pre-match press conference from Friday afternoons to Thursday, when we're currently recording, in order to be present for one of the concurrent services in England and in Germany that will occur on Friday at 2:45. There will be a Manchester Platz service for fans travelling to Munich to commemorate the disaster. The club's head of engagement, Rich McGar, will be there, as well as Alex Stepney. Andy Mitten will also be present at a service that will be occurring by Old Trafford.
Yeah, it's good that the club are doing this, and there's organisations like the Manchester Munich Memorial Foundation who put a lot of good work into raising money. A lot of people will be going to Munich this year, partly because there's no other travels this year. The disaster will be remembered also at the women's game at Lee, and also Saturday morning before the Tottenham Hotspur game at Old Trafford. The TRA have got some special flags made as well, so I think this is all good. I've been invited to speak at the Club Memorial on Friday, so I'll take a day off to do that, and everybody's welcome to come. And the club are putting on tea and coffee and refreshments in the International Suite in the Stretford End after. So, people are never shy to criticise the club when they get things wrong. I think the club absolutely get things right when it comes to stuff like this, and I realise it's a working day, it's not accessible for everybody. But if you can come, try and come. There'll also be some memorabilia from the era of the Busby Babes, which is being taken from the museum, and fans will be able to see that in the Stretford End. I think it's the International Suite. Again, that's all free to access.
For further details on how the club plans to commemorate the Munich air disaster, you can go onto the official Manchester United website now. We will put details in the show notes below. Okay, Manchester United are in Saturday's early kickoff this weekend. They're playing Tottenham Hotspur. I really want to say, lads, it's Tottenham, but I feel like I can't say it anymore after that terrible evening in Bilbao. So let's just get straight into it. Tottenham Hotspur beat United 4 times last season. Michael Carrick's in charge now. Is it time for some revenge, Laurie?
It's got to be, hasn't it? I mean, Carrick was in that dressing room when I think lads, it's Tottenham was probably uttered a few times at least. So obviously came from Tottenham, was part of, perhaps, I don't know, was there any kind of rivalry there? Or would be Berbatov as well and Teddy Sheringham, sort of those kind of transfers where United have basically gone, thank you very much, Tottenham, we'll have your best players. Obviously they looked at Gareth Bale, didn't they? I think they looked at Luka Modric as well, but ultimately they went to a different club on the continent. But I think that Carrick has certainly shown himself, hasn't he, in these 3 games, that he can adapt to different situations, and it's going to be really fascinating to see what kind of Spurs team shows up, because they have been decimated by injuries recently, and if you looked at that first half against Man City at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last weekend, then you sort of thought, well, okay, they could get a real hurting in this game, and then hopefully that's encouragement for United at Old Trafford. But they roused themselves, didn't they? They kind of came back at City, and the way that United had sort of beaten City, hurt City, Tottenham were then able to do, and then you kind of get the well, I suppose I'm getting off subject here, but you kind of get in some whinges from the blue half of Manchester, aren't you, after the game? But as far as Tottenham's concerned, I do think that it's a fascinating one where you've got Thomas Frank, who's gone in there, and obviously United were linked with Thomas Frank, weren't they? They looked at him, I certainly think, around the first time that they were observing the market for Eric Ten Hag replacements. Ultimately, Tottenham have taken the plunge. I think that's a good thing that you've got, clubs towards the end, towards the top of the division, who, aspire to win trophies, looking in the Premier League and giving these guys a chance, because how else are we going to find out? It feels like a sort of meritocracy in action, really. But he's obviously had a difficult time, and there's certainly been turmoil. There's been questions about whether he's going to even last at the club. Thomas Frank, he is still in charge, and but I think that just all adds into a kind of question around what kind of Tottenham are you going to see, and is Sergio Romero going to be fit, for example? They've had to have a bit of a makeshift back line. I certainly think that's something Romero, that United. Sorry. Well,
Sergio.
There we go. Maybe Sergio make an appearance. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm getting too much United history listen, best number 2 in action, Sergio Romero. But yeah.
100% agreed.
Laurie's just said Tottenham Hotspur gave Thomas Frank a chance. It's not really working out now, is it? No domestic wins for him in 2026. He got caught holding an Arsenal Cup at a Brentford game. The team is getting booed a lot when they're playing in their amazing new stadium that every football club wants to copy and build their own version of. Are Spurs good?
What a question.
Good question.
No, I think I can decisively say that. But then I've said that before on this podcast about teams, and then United have gone and lost to them. It was me sticking my neck on the line saying Aston Villa are crap, and now look at them, they're reeling them in. They're falling back. But United went and lost that weekend after I said that, so maybe I should just rein it in a little bit. I did think that the result last week in the City game for Spurs, I wasn't sure whether that was a good result for United or not, because after that first half, I totally agree with Laurie. Like, you were thinking to this game the next weekend and thinking, well, how bad could it be? United could really go through them. But at the same time, it looked like they were just so abject last week in that first half, and the atmosphere inside the stadium was. Gary Neville was speaking about it on commentary, was so poor, just so defeated, like totally sedated, that you were just wondering how can he really survive this? And I thought maybe Frank would lose his job this week, and then United walk into a new manager bounce next, just as their new manager bounce might be fading. So I did wonder exactly whether that worked out, but Spurs came back in the second half. Frank is clearly going to get this game, and let's see how long he lasts. I think it's tough. I think, we were talking around November, December time about missed opportunities, and I'm almost reticent to use that phrase again because I feel like we've said it so much on this podcast. But looking back, that being 1-0 up at Tottenham in November, just before the international break, wasn't it? Against this Tottenham team, and managing to throw that away to go 2-1 down effectively and then rescue a point right at the end with Matthijs de Ligt's header. That feels like as much a missed opportunity as the games against West Ham, against Wolves, against Everton, whoever, 10-man Everton, whoever you want to call it, because I think since then we've seen that this Tottenham team, although on paper you obviously think that it's going to be a difficult game, fellow so-called Big Six opponent, rival, they're really not at that level this season, as they weren't last for the majority of it. Of course, that didn't stop them beating United time and time again last season, and so far they've frustrated United this season. I do think that from a United perspective, you have to be more optimistic going into this week, because Tottenham, they just look they look bereft of ideas at times in attack, and you would imagine that from the upturn in form that we've seen from United over the last few weeks, that they'll be able to handle that and they'll be able to punish them at the other end. So I think the mood is slightly optimistic going into it, but I'm wary that this United side haven't been able to put away a version of this Tottenham side this season and last before.
I think it's as big a test as City and Arsenal and Fulham. I think that Tottenham haven't been able to do what Manchester United have done this year and get out of the doldrums. Defeat in Bilbao is still raw. Tottenham's record away from home is actually one of the best in the league. It's the 5th best in the league, 4th best even. And I can remember going to that game at the start of November, and all the statistics around it, and Laurie and I were outside the ground, remember, were that Tottenham were terrible at home. So you're going into it thinking Manchester United can get a result, and played well and were set for a result, and then conceded 2 goals. I think your point about the fans is really pertinent. Tottenham are struggling. I read an article by someone I respect recently talking about how the fans are turning on each other inside their own ground. And it made me think of Man United fans, because there is a unity inside the ground. But online, United fans turn against each other all the time. They hate each other. But Tottenham fans are doing it in real life. And that must be pretty awful if you're a Tottenham fan. Tottenham against City is a weird one. They always seem to get a result. So a little bit of a misnomer, that game last week. I think it's a tricky game. I think this is still Michael Carrick honeymoon period. We're loving what we've seen, but I'm scarred by what I saw last season when Manchester United played these teams. The best case scenario is that them players are as livid as we are as to what happened in Bilbao. I can't escape it. I was watching a programme last night, travel show, what comes up, Bilbao, just get off my screen. And every time there's European football, Tottenham are doing well in Europe, by the way. They've had some really good results. They beat Eintracht away from home. And I think it's a huge, huge game. I don't know whether the early kickoff, I'm trying to look for like keys, indicators as to where it's going to go. You would hope that it carries on and it becomes 4 wins for Michael Carrick. But we are a long, long way from lads, it's Tottenham.
That's enough talk about the opposition. Let's talk about some of the playing options Michael Carrick has at his disposal. So, Sesko gets the winner to put Fulham to the sword. Laurie, would you give him the start on Saturday?
Ooh, I'm making lots of noises. I'm doing a U here, Carl, aren't I? I'm making lots of noises, trying to figure it out in my own head. I probably would keep it the same, really. I think Carrick's shown, hasn't he? He's got a winning formula, at least so far. I know Dorgu coming out of the team has affected that a bit, but I think Cunha was pretty good, against Fulham. So I think he's worth a different type of play on the left, but I think that's fine to kind of keep him in and Mbeumo up top, and then have a substitute come off the bench and score again, because it's 3 games in a row that a substitute scored for Manchester United off the bench. You had Sesko in the last game, Cunha in the game before that, and obviously Mason Mount in the Man City game. So 3 goals from substitutes, and I expect Michael Carrick to recall Sergio Romero from Argentinos Juniors, get him on the bench, put him on as a last-minute sub, goalkeeper goes up for a corner, gets the winner in front of the Stretford end. I think, more seriously, I think he's knocking at the door, and I think that was a really big goal for him, wasn't it? I know you guys discussed this on the pod after the game, but for him to take that touch, swivel, get it into the top corner, it was a beautifully executed finish, to bring that energy, to bring that, sort of point of an attack that you can add to your team late into a game was huge for him. And I hope that he can build on that confidence. And it seems like he's got the right kind of mentality, I think, in this situation where he was scoring goals, or at least he scored 3, hadn't he, under Darren Fletcher, to then come out of the team under Michael Carrick, not even get on against Man City, but then to actually sort of, it seems like, keep that resolve, keep that positivity to his play. He obviously could have scored with his first touch against Fulham, couldn't he? So again, that didn't let him get down. I think he did give a ball away for the goal that then, for the counter-attack that then Fulham got the penalty from. Again, didn't let that affect his game, got back up on the other end of the pitch and did what we hoped he would do. But I think I'd probably stick largely with the Fulham team. I don't know, what do you guys think?
I think that I think I agree. I think I would have liked to see Sesko start against Fulham, to be honest, because I think that when you're spending a lot of time, the game didn't transpire like this. We spent all last week talking about the low block, and it didn't really work out like that, did it? But I like having a big 6'5" Slovenian in the middle of the box, looking to get onto chances when you're expecting to have a lot of the ball. Specifically has to be Slovenian. Well, he is Slovenian, so we'll take it. But I would have liked to see him from the off against Fulham, and I think you saw that once he came on, he made an immediate impact. He was hitting the post with his first touch, and it felt like United just had the ball a little bit more, a little bit more threatening in the box when he was on, I thought. So I would have liked to see it there. For this one, I'm not 100% sure, because I think it could be a little bit more open, I expect. But as we were saying in the last pod, I think he's shown now that he does have, as you were saying, Laurie, that mentality where he has had a bit of a knockback. And I would like the goal on Sunday to be a lift-off moment for him. But we've seen, even if it's not, then he can just come on and make an impact again, and that's really important. One thing we know about Sesko is how hard he works, and it's all we ever hear about, how he's in the gym afterwards longer than anybody else, and all preparation he puts into his mentality, and the work he does meditated and things like that. So you would hope he's in the right frame of mind for it. Although the difficulty is, if he comes in, who goes out? And it's probably Ahmad, isn't it? Because I don't think anybody's dropping Mbeumo at the minute. And you can't really say that Ahmad's done anything to deserve to be left out of the team in these last 3 games either. So,
I think it's important defensively, Ahmad, as well, really, in that way. The wing-back role that he'd had, I think that has ingrained in him that mindset a little bit more. And obviously he's very aggressive, isn't he, in the press?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you've seen that in the last 3 games as well, that there's just been that energy from that side going both ways. And I think the time that he spent playing as wing back over the last 14 months, okay, maybe it wasn't the best use of his abilities. I don't know. We can differ on that, but it has made him a bit more a rounded player and somebody who, can fulfill that role within this system as well as a different one. So, yeah, I think I'd keep the same team, to be honest. And after 3 wins, what's the argument for changing anyway?
Andy, is this a nice problem now?
Yeah, it's good. Why change a winning formula? Players are doing well. All the feedback I'm getting is really encouraging. I'm having Sesko. I'm going to try and knit together now 2 themes of this podcast, Tottenham and commercialism. And here's how I'm going to do it, right? In 1992, Manchester United signed one of the most important signings in the club's history, right? Commercially. Edward Friedman had revolutionised the merchandise at Tottenham Hotspur. Edward's from Stamford Hill in London, and he came into Man United and completely revolutionised the merchandise. The megastore was down to Edward. The club magazine was down to Edward. Manchester United opening an office in Hong Kong was down to Edward. And the reason I say this, because he reckoned he was a Tottenham fan, but I used to have him over. He died last week or the week before. So I think it's relevant to mention him because after Man United, he went on to do the Spice Girls. He was a big hitter. And him and I used to argue like cats and dogs. But he was great with me.
Which was the Spice Girls' best song?
He'd sort of come up here, he called me a chippy northerner. And I'd say, look, come in K-stand with me and I'll introduce you to people. And he's like, I can't, they'll have me in there. Come in with me, you'll be absolutely sweet. And he was the one who saw the potential in Man United. I mentioned earlier on the Glazers doing what they did. Edward was the man who put Man United badges onto duvets. No one had really done it before to the level that he did it. And I just used to have him over about Tottenham. He went, no, I'm not a Tottenham fan, I'm a Man United fan. You're not Man United. Look, I've got more respect for you if you just say, I'm a big Tottenham fan. Tottenham are one of the great clubs of English football. But I thought I'd mention him because he died recently. Rest in peace, Edward. Miss our arguments, and your money helped by Roy Keane.
Come on then, Laurie. What's the best Spice Girls song?
Well, I said this, I hoped Andy might jump in because at the 2-year anniversary of the Athletic, Andy laughed as I danced to a Spice Girls song. Can you remember what it was, Andy?
No, but I know this podcast.
I think it was Spice of Your Life, or something like that. Who knows what it was? But listen, they've got some good tracks.
That Athletic dude, there was real journalism going on, and Adam Crafton was working away getting a story, and Laurie was just dancing to the.
It was on Messi on it as well, yeah.
And I really. It was
just after lockdown. You had to let your hair down.
I really do not need to admit this, but I once took my mum to see the Spice Girls in Manchester. And I don't know why, but I did take her. I bought a ticket. It wasn't a freebie. And I took my mum to see them. So if you're going to hammer me for it, I completely, along with Tony Braxton, who an ex-girlfriend took me to see in Manchester, they are the 2 least cool concerts I've ever been to.
There you have it, friends. Talk of the Devils, the Manchester United show that also features input on Spice Girls songs and commercial revenue. Right then, let's go back to the football just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Rob Tanner has done an excellent piece on Luke Shaw. As we mentioned in a previous podcast, Luke Shaw is on his longest run of Premier League starts for Manchester United. Well, ever, really. It's possibly, most likely, start number 25 on Saturday. And Rob Tanner's asked, could he play his way into getting a World Cup call-up? Mark Critchley, you've just pulled a face. Is Luke Shaw's form maybe is Luke Shaw's form maybe worth consideration to Thomas Tuchel's England squad? And also, is that a good idea? Luke Shaw playing for England in an international tournament again?
Well, what happened last time?
He really
went to the tournament, didn't play until, was it the semi-final?
Yeah.
Played the semi-final, played the final, and then didn't play for United for another 4 months after that. All after Sir Jim Ratcliffe had sent him a video message saying, watch your hamstrings as well before that final from his boat in Norway, I believe, at the time. I was actually over there for pre-season friendly against Rosenborg. I think, Andy, you were there as well, watching the final in a bar called the Three Lions in Trondheim. There is an English-themed pub in Trondheim called the Three Lions. Quite an experience. Anyway, no, Luke Shaw. Look, I think on the merit, on his performances this season, on the consistency that he's shown, not just in those performances, but in his availability, then you could certainly make a strong argument that he deserves a chance. I don't think England are totally blessed with left-back options at the minute. If we think about who it might be, who like Lewis Hall, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Dan Burn. I mean, forgive me, Newcastle and Arsenal fans and Dan Burn fans in general, but I'm not that persuaded by any of those options. So I could see the argument for taking Luke Shaw. I also think that Tuchel seems to settle on a group, and I think that's fairly, I wouldn't say set in stone, but he's been pretty consistent with his selections over the final few qualifying rounds and international windows, and that would suggest that there isn't that much scope for players to come in and out. Now, maybe left backs, given it's a bit of a problem position, maybe that's one that he could come in on. So we'll see. I somehow doubt it, and I think that probably applies as well, unfortunately, to Harry Maguire. It probably applies to Kobbie Mainoo as well. You don't know now because, look, particularly on Maguire and Mainoo, their circumstances have changed a little bit recently, where Maguire's come back from injury and he's starting regularly. Mainoo wasn't injured, or not consistently injured at least, but wasn't starting at all, and now he's getting his opportunities. So maybe there's some chance for something changing there. But Tuchel seems to know what he wants by this stage, and I think I'd be surprised if those United players factor within it. Now, that would be disappointing for the players, but as you rightly point out, I think a lot of United fans wouldn't mind so much if Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire and Kobbie Mainoo come back for pre-season training mid-July, having not been at the tournament, and are fully well rested for another season. So there's benefits to it as well, if we're being totally selfish from a United perspective.
It's a big deal for Harry Maguire. I know that for a fact. I'm sure it is for the other lads as well. For Luke and for Harry, it's probably the last World Cup finals if they're going to make it. Kobbie's obviously got more years. Kobbie's had a great month, hasn't he, getting back into the team. If you say, you know them 3-word map things that they have, if you say the 3 words to me, Luke Shaw, England and World Cup final, my brain just goes to Costa Rica, England in 2014 in Belo Horizonte. It's the worst game of football I've ever seen. It's the worst game I've ever seen. And that is all I've got to say on it. Carry on.
Speaking of stats, Laurie's had his finger wagging for the majority of this podcast because he wants to mention one special thing he's been researching during his time away. Over to you, Mr. Whitwell.
Thank you, Carl. Well, you know how, you kind of get an idea in your head. And I had this thought when Casemiro headed in from a Bruno Fernandes corner against Fulham, and I was sort of asking people, how many goals is that now that he's assisted? Because you sort of think, obviously, the Nottingham Forest game and then the Carabao Cup final. It's actually not bad, okay? So I'm just saying, you guys talked about Casemiro's exit at the end of the season after this and the kind of hole that would leave, and set pieces being a big factor. But so, yeah, Bruno Fernandes assisting Casemiro in set pieces in all competitions in the Premier League, of Premier League teams rather, since 22-23, so when Casemiro joined, 7. And that's the top of any partnership, shall we say, in the Premier League. So the second most is Bukayo Saka to Gabriel with 5. Bruno to Harry Maguire actually 4 as well. So I just thought that was kind of interesting in terms of saying, listen, this is a partnership that has been fruitful for United, at least in terms of the set piece variety. I was trying to dig into whether it was particularly high amongst just general assists. No. In that time, Kevin De Bruyne to Erling Haaland, 19 assists. And he's not even been in the season. He's not even been playing for City this season. And in terms of United anyway, since Casemiro joined, Bruno assisting Casemiro, 7, as I said earlier. The only other partnership that's got more goals than that is Bruno assisting Rashford with 8. So it does speak to, I suppose, just as you guys correctly pointed out, the gap that might be coming United's way, and something to consider. I think you, Carl, mentioned this, didn't you, in terms of the midfield targets that they're looking at, not to neglect perhaps that set piece potency.
I mean, what you're basically telling me here is one of Casemiro and Harry Maguire is going to score a thumping header at the back post on Saturday, right?
Well, after Sergio Romero scored it, but yeah.
Of course, yes.
Well, he's playing for Tottenham at centre-back, though.
Hopefully.
And we can't forget your good friend Mason Mount chipping in too.
Yes, Mason Mount. I mean, his injury situation, he wasn't in the squad, was he, against Fulham? So, I mean, yeah, that's one to keep. Although he was in training this week, so hopefully it's just a small one.
I was looking to take the mickey out of Laurie for that stat then, because I didn't think it'd be interesting, but it is actually interesting. So I'm just imagining him now. sat at home with his lovely wife saying, Laurie, can you just feed the little one? Wait a minute, he's gone past De Bruyne.
Exactly.
We've got him. I've got it. Walking around the room cheering.
Yeah, paternity leave is wasted on some people, isn't it?
I know I shouldn't have the time to research this kind of stuff, should I? But somehow I do.
Somehow you do. Thank you very much, Laurie, for chipping in on this quite hilarious podcast, actually. Thank you to Critch, thank you to Andy, and thank you for listening or watching. Remember, you can get in your questions, thoughts, queries, and your observations on Manchester United to devilspod@theathletic.com. In fact, one of you sent in an observation on Mateus Cunha's shooting technique, and it was so good that I dedicated a whole 1,000-word article to it, and it's going to come out later this week. So always, thank you for your comments. They make the podcast better. They also make our reportage better too. Have a great weekend. We're going to be back after the game against Tottenham. Whatever happens. Take care.
Thanks for watching this episode of Talk of the Devils. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you've not done already. Like the video and also get involved in the comments too. And click the bell to make sure that you never miss an episode with myself, Andy Mitten, Carl Anker and Laurie Whitwell. There's also our social channels @TOT Devils on Instagram, X and TikTok. Thanks for watching.